Welcome to Choosing to Be, your home for intimate conversations on transformation. This is Amanda Wirtz Rosolowski, and I'm delighted to share this time with you. Good day, good people. This is your time to invest in yourself, and I consider it such a privilege to share this time with you. Supporting you to make the most of your time is one of my personal goals. And so today I'd like to talk about giving yourself permission to change. A little bit of context here. I have a pretty unique history. We'll get more into that next week as a former cryptologic analyst in the military. A code breaker. I also am a research scientist with a focus on health promotion and behavioral science. If you combine those two things, I'm deeply fascinated with our repeating patterns. I've always been fascinated with patterns, specifically in the way that we think and how that affects our behavior. And I believe that we are fundamentally repeating patterns. Now, those can be created, interrupted, changed, but current science of the unconscious mind reveals that up to 95% of what we do, even including our personality, our creative tendencies, not just our behaviors, the ways that we think, 95% of that is done without our conscious intention. So it would be easy to extrapolate that it's easier to repeat something. In fact, we do this quite naturally, unconsciously, than it would be to create something new. Yet, it is in our nature to change. And the healthiest parts of ourselves, they want to grow. We want to grow. It feels good to grow. We want others to support our transformation, don't we? We want them to encourage us. We want them to believe in our burgeoning potential. And I think inherently we all have that. Yet we resist our own transformation. Often, I believe we haven't given ourselves permission to change. This is frequently not a conversation we have with ourselves, and infrequently or at all a conversation that we have with those who are closest to us. In fact, we are surrounded by people who, unintentionally or not, remind us of who we used to be, the things that we used to do. And the inference is that we'll just keep being that and doing that. In fact, we're surrounded by cultural memes. Don't ever change. I think everybody's written this or had this written in their high school yearbook, a time or 100. Don't ever change. And this is pretty pervasive, even if we're not saying it out loud, but it is a death march for our soul. Just feel how that sits with you right now. Don't ever change. Hashtag stagnation. Or what? Or we won't be friends? Or you somehow won't be okay and that's for me to manage? Or I will lose your approval? You don't want to lose your own approval. Fundamentally, self-approval is all that matters. And what if we said this instead? I want you to be fully alive, walking a path that feels organic and true for you. Do that. Be that. Change as much and as frequently as feels right for you. Now, I'll be doing that here, doing the same, and celebrating our collective courage to break free from the patterns that do not serve us. I'll be celebrating our collective courage to create ourselves and our lives anew because we can. So let's say it to ourselves. We cannot invite this truth into our subconscious, our unconscious mind, if we are not even staking this claim consciously. I want to be fully alive, walking a path that feels organic and true for me. I will change as much and as frequently as feels right. I am celebrating my own courage to break free from patterns that don't serve me, to create myself and my life anew. I'll put that little blurb of text in the show notes. As my coach and mentor, Dr. Renee Goodrich, shares, you only get better with the truth. You'll hear me repeat that a lot. Going back to my first podcast, and the truth is, your very nature is transformation. We could stop resisting that. Just touching real quickly on resistance, a lot of times we think we have to add something to the equation. I'm going to start doing this or believing this or moving this particular direction. But perhaps the most effective way to create movement in our lives is to stop resisting certain things. And one of them is that we are made for transformation and life is calling us to evolve. We can stop resisting our own transformation. We can consciously give ourselves permission and even have some delightful expectation that we can, that we will, that we are changing and for the better. I like to look at nature. I think metaphors are really powerful, and the truth is always waiting to be revealed. It's in patterns, it's in nature. Let's take a look at a monarch butterfly. This butterfly, this amazing creature, begins as an egg, transforms into a caterpillar, later creates for itself a chrysalis, which it emerges as a butterfly. A monarch butterfly caterpillar does not resist its transformation. Oh, shoot. Look at my sister over there in her leaf. She hasn't gone into her chrysalis yet. I'm going to slow this whole thing down. It also doesn't deny its own nature. The monarch caterpillar doesn't say, well, that grasshopper is an amazing jumper. I think I'm going to tuck these wings up inside and get these legs moving instead. It also doesn't hate itself or its transformation timeline. It doesn't compare itself. Well, I've been eating for days. Caterpillars eat a lot, and I'm still a caterpillar. What is wrong with me? Those other caterpillars are burrowed down and they're sleek and silky cocoons, but I'm still out here on a limb with another mouthful of milkweed. It doesn't do that. It also doesn't waste its energy or time trying to understand or predict what it's experiencing or how it will evolve. Okay, well, let's see here. Based on my consumption, days on this plant, I should be a butterfly in approximately 4 days. With a 7.5-inch wingspan, capable of flying 11 miles per hour top speed, it doesn't do that. Lastly, it doesn't ask others to validate its evolution. The caterpillar doesn't look at the robin nested next to it and say, well, we both have real estate in this area of the yard, and I feel like we've gotten to know each other, and I'm sensing it might be time for a change. I feel like it's time for me to build something. I don't even know what that is yet, but I was wondering, what do you think? Should I? I mean, what do you really think I need to do? The butterfly doesn't do this, but we do. We do all of those things. And I hope you had some good laughs because it was so fun for me to think about and talk about. We deny our nature. Then we hate ourselves and our own transformation timeline. We waste our energy trying to understand the process, predict our future, and then if you really want to stick a fork in it, we ask others for validation and approval. We deplete ourselves emotionally with these destructive and very commonplace habits. The good news is that, like most things, once we're aware, we can make a change. And maybe you've experienced a season where you were overwhelmed, shut down. I mean, I certainly have had many of those. You'll hear about them next week. Maybe your own evolution wasn't a priority, or you didn't have a path forward. And you can give yourself permission, firstly, for experiencing what was perhaps necessary self-preservation. And that's over. You are not him or her anymore. You are here now. You are present to the truth now, and you did not quit on yourself. I believe that's the true core of self-confidence. It's not that you know it all, that you have it all, that you can do it all, that you can just fake it really well. It's that you refuse to quit on yourself and your own evolution. You can start with giving yourself permission to change. You're essentially giving yourself the freedom to be yourself. Now, many of us may already be doing this, and we're on a continuum, but regardless, this is my money back guarantee. Regardless of where you are, I guarantee it that more freedom is available to you. You can share with others that you're making a deeper commitment to yourself, to explore your own evolution, to make changes, and ultimately to become more of who you fundamentally are. You can ask yourself for support. You can define what would that look like. You can implement those steps. You can ask those closest to you for support if that feels right. What do you have to lose? Let's break it down. You might be met with enthusiasm, curiosity, a sense of connection that you've never felt before. Number one, because you're connecting more with yourself, and then creating the opportunity for someone else to meet you there in that I see you, I hear you, let's go for it space. And that would be amazing. But you might also meet resistance. That is also amazing. If those closest to you resist your evolution, firstly, it means nothing about you. That's good information. They are showing you very clearly their limitations, their fears, and they can have them. That's not for you to judge. They can have them. They can live like that. You can like your courage for asking, and you'll get to decide for yourself then what you want more. Their approval or yours. You can continue on your path, inviting people who are capable of supporting and celebrating your growth. But it's not about you. And here's the paradox. In all of this learning, be generous with others. As Gandhi said, be the change you wish to see. Give those you love and even those you don't love permission to change. Outwardly, give them the freedom to be who they are becoming. You're okay no matter what. You are now an example, contributing to a very healthy emotional ecology that you now get to be a part of. I think that's pretty amazing. Perhaps no one has ever invited you into a dynamic, nurturing, self-honoring space, but you can create it now. I think that's something very special that you can be proud of. Say it to your friends. Say it to your children. Say it to your spouse. Say it in your office. I'm in the middle of a book right now called Love as a Business Strategy, Resilience, Belonging, and Success. And I had the absolute pleasure of speaking to one of the authors, Frank Dana. Love as a Business Strategy. I will put that in the show notes today. In summary, the authors invite us to take responsibility for our part, whether you are a leader, a colleague, or a customer, in creating a culture of love. Now, love can be a very loaded word, and for those of us who have had unique and complex childhoods, it can be very loaded. But if just in the context of this conversation in their book, love is prioritizing people and fostering a culture of care and respect. What they've discovered, I'm summarizing, people thrive under those conditions. They thrive in a culture of care and respect where they're prioritized. And when people thrive, so do processes. And when processes thrive, now you're on the path to organizational success. I want to emphasize and circle back to what we're talking about here, that love or prioritizing people is also giving yourself and others the freedom and encouragement to change, grow, and evolve. You can be part of that culture, your inner culture, the culture of you. how you talk to yourself, the emotional ecology that you yourself are creating with your words and your thought. You can take ownership of that and the ways in which you're participating in the culture of your family, the groups that you belong to, your friend circle. Your contribution matters. I have countless personal stories about the importance and the power of giving yourself permission to change. Next week, I'll get into quite a few of those. For example, I grew up in a very dysfunctional home, two alcoholic parents, lots of gaslighting, emotional abuse. My teenage years were made even more difficult by, sadly, a few circumstances that are not all that uncommon. 16 years old, I was locked in an attic by a stranger and raped. I did my best with my limited resources to find my way out of that. And I also developed some not so healthy coping mechanisms. I ate to deal with my feelings. I drank to deal with my feelings. And then I layered myself with shame for participating in behaviors that I knew fundamentally were not supporting my whole being. And when I was 18 years old, I wanted to find a way to pay for college, become independent of my family, have the financial resources to basically just take care of myself. And so I enlisted in the military. And I remember walking into boot camp. I was overweight, depressed, definitely traumatized. And my relationship with food and alcohol was so disturbing. I knew on some level, this is a repeating pattern that is not serving me. And I stood in line at the galley where you go to get food. And I looked at all the people file in first day ahead of me. And I made a decision to myself that I was just going to eat food from the earth. No more processed food. And there certainly wasn't a cantina where I could have a beverage. And there wasn't a snack bar in boot camp. So I was limited in creating a discipline, which was so helpful to supporting my body in just this way. And this is how we were going to do it now. And I was supporting myself to change. And I'd always interpreted myself as someone who was overweight, would always be overweight. I didn't at that time interpret myself as an athlete or someone who could do something physical and do it well and enjoy that experience with my body. But over the course of 8 weeks or however long boot camp was, not only did I lose, I think, 35 pounds, but I experienced myself as an athlete. I could do a lot of push-ups. I had to do a lot of push-ups. And I liked the experience of myself. And I had to first give myself permission to change. And as I changed, the behavior just confirmed this new identity that I was more than my limitations. I was more than the repeating pattern, that I could change. Experiencing the truth of yourself as a transformative agent of change is huge because once you can connect with that truth, you can take it with you everywhere. This semester, I had an incredible experience witnessing a student do this for himself. With his permission, I'm going to share a little bit of his story here. His name is Rio, and he came to my class. I will read his words here. A closed-in introvert who disliked any form of social interaction. That was the way in which he identified himself. That was his repeating pattern. This student leaned in to, I swear, every opportunity he possibly could to transform. And it was uncomfortable, like the butterfly and the chrysalis. Oh, did he ever get up to those edges and wonder, where the heck is this going? And it's so uncomfortable in here, but I'm going to keep moving and I'm going to keep pushing. Because on some level, he believed the truth was that there was life, really big, beautiful life outside that chrysalis. And he kept going. He made that decision for himself. And in just the course of 12 weeks together, in some ways, he completely transformed. In fact, his words, he said, I've undergone a transformation that once seemed impossible. It truly feels like a miracle come true. Now, Rio graciously gives me a lot of credit, but the reality is he was aligned with truth. He was aligned with a high degree of permission to change. He encouraged himself. He created a culture within himself. Of course, we did our best to create that in the classroom to cheer each other on, but everybody's got their own choice to make. Everybody has their own claim to stake. How much permission will you give yourself to change? That's good stuff. One of the things that Rio said that just made my heart light up, he said, Professor Rosolowski, I don't even recognize myself. And isn't that the truth for all of us when we really embrace change, when we really give ourselves permission to change? When we are in the river, we will get carried fast and furiously and find ourselves in a new place. And it all started because we gave ourselves permission to change. You are free to change. You are free to be yourself. Only you can give yourself that freedom. Then you can watch, listen, respond to the ways in which life is calling you to evolve. Perhaps you want to carve out some time to listen to your inner voice. Check out our first podcast, This Page Left Intentionally Blank, and make some of those changes. The healthiest relationships are those in which you are free to be yourself. We can foster that relationship even more with ourselves. We can foster that relationship with those that we care about and love. Even if they can't do it for us, we can. We can be an agent of transformative change and stake that claim. We can give that freedom. We can embody that freedom. I hope you can appreciate the investment that you're making in yourself right now, today. We are growing together, and that is such a gift. If this podcast has resonated with you, remember to subscribe and consider sharing it. Bring your family, your friends, your community into this very important conversation. You can also move this message forward by leaving a review. Join me next week for a very special and personal podcast. You may be wondering, who the heck are you? Why do you care? And why should I care? Next week, I'll share the story behind the story, how a question saved my life, and why I'm now called to share these transformative messages with you. For now, this is Amanda Wirtz Rosolowski, celebrating your highest and most important choice, who you are choosing to be.